Writing. Imagine standing on a cold airfield in the early 1940s, looking up as the deep roar of four powerful engines shakes the ground beneath your feet. In front of you sits one of the most iconic aircraft ever built, a machine that would become a symbol of American determination, innovation, and courage. This is the B-17 Flying Fortress, a bomber that helped define an era and played a major role in shaping the outcome of World War II. Long before advanced stealth technology, precision-guided weapons, and modern jet fighters dominated the skies, the B-17 represented the cutting edge of military aviation. It was a flying giant that carried crews into some of the most dangerous missions ever flown and earned a reputation for toughness that became legendary around the world. The story of the B-17 began during the 1930s when the United States Army Air Corps was searching for a bomber capable of flying farther, carrying heavier loads, and operating more effectively than existing aircraft. American military planners recognized that future conflicts might require striking targets hundreds of miles away from friendly bases. Boeing answered the challenge by designing a revolutionary aircraft powered by four engines, something that was uncommon at the time. When the prototype first flew, it immediately impressed observers with its size, speed, and performance. During a demonstration flight, journalists noticed the aircraft was covered with machine gun positions. They described it as a flying fortress, and the nickname quickly became official. As Europe moved closer to war, the United States continued improving the aircraft. Engineers refined the design, added more defensive weapons, increased bomb-carrying capability, and improved reliability. By the time America entered World War II after the attack on Pearl Harbor, the B-17 was ready to become one of the nation's most important weapons. Factories worked around the clock producing thousands of aircraft. Workers from every corner of the country helped build them, contributing to an industrial effort unlike anything the world had ever seen. Inside the aircraft, life was far from comfortable. A typical crew consisted of 10 men, each with a specific role and enormous responsibilities. There was the pilot, co-pilot, navigator, bombardier, flight engineer, radio operator, and several gunners. During missions, every crew member depended on the others for survival. The pilot and co-pilot guided the aircraft through enemy territory while the navigator ensured they remained on course. The bombardier prepared for the critical moment when bombs would be released over the target. Meanwhile, gunners constantly scanned the skies for enemy fighters determined to shoot them down. Flying aboard a B-17 was physically demanding and often terrifying. Missions frequently took crews to altitudes exceeding 25,000 feet where temperatures could plunge far below freezing. Oxygen masks were essential because the air was too thin to breathe normally. Crew members wore heavy flight suits, gloves, and heated equipment to survive the extreme cold. Frost sometimes formed inside the aircraft. Turbulence shook the bomber as anti-aircraft shells exploded nearby. Despite these hardships, crews pressed forward because they understood the importance of their missions. The B-17 became most famous for its role in the daylight bombing campaign over Nazi-occupied Europe. American military leaders believed that precision bombing conducted during daylight hours could strike key industrial and military targets while minimizing damage to civilian areas. This strategy differed from the nighttime bombing missions often conducted by Allied forces. Flying during the day offered better visibility, but it also exposed bombers to enemy defenses. German fighter aircraft and anti-aircraft guns posed a constant threat. When formations of B-17s crossed the English Channel and headed toward targets deep inside Europe, they created an unforgettable sight. Hundreds of bombers sometimes filled the sky, flying in carefully organized formations designed to maximize defensive firepower. The concept was simple but dangerous. Each aircraft protected the others with overlapping fields of machine gun fire. Together, the bombers formed a moving fortress capable of defending itself against enemy fighters. In reality, however, combat proved far more challenging than planners expected. German pilots quickly learned how to attack bomber formations. Armed with fast and heavily armed fighters, they launched repeated assaults from every direction. Crews often described the experience as overwhelming. Enemy aircraft appeared suddenly, firing cannons and machine guns before disappearing into the clouds. Gunners responded with intense defensive fire, filling the sky with tracer rounds. Explosions, smoke, and chaos became routine parts of combat missions. One of the most remarkable characteristics of the B-17 was its ability to absorb punishment. Stories of damaged aircraft returning home became legendary throughout the war. Some bombers landed with massive holes in their wings and fuselage. Others returned with entire sections missing, engines destroyed, or control surfaces heavily damaged. Photographs taken after missions revealed aircraft that seemed impossible to fly, yet somehow they brought their crews safely back to base. This resilience helped build the Flying Fortress legend and boosted morale among airmen facing extraordinary risks. The aircraft's rugged construction contributed significantly to its reputation. Engineers designed the B-17 with strong structural components capable of withstanding substantial damage. Redundant systems increased the chances of survival if critical equipment failed. 4 engines provided additional security because the aircraft could sometimes continue flying even after losing one or more engines. Although no airplane was indestructible, the B-17 consistently demonstrated remarkable toughness under combat conditions. Among the most dangerous missions flown by B-17 crews were attacks against heavily defended targets deep within Germany. These operations often lasted many hours and exposed crews to relentless enemy opposition. One of the most famous examples occurred during raids on industrial facilities that were vital to the German war effort. Bomber crews knew these targets would be heavily protected, yet they continued flying missions because disrupting enemy production was considered essential to Allied success. Losses could be severe. Entire formations sometimes suffered significant casualties. Empty bunks and vacant seats became painful reminders of friends who did not return. Nevertheless, new crews continued arriving, and experienced veterans kept flying. The courage displayed by these airmen became one of the defining stories of the war. They understood the risks involved, yet they climbed aboard their aircraft day after day because they believed in the mission. The psychological strain was enormous. Crew members often faced the constant possibility of injury, capture, or death. Many described the moments before takeoff as some of the most stressful parts of the mission. Once airborne, there was little time to dwell on fear because every crew member had responsibilities demanding full attention. Concentrating on navigation, bombing, communications, and defense helped maintain focus even during intense combat. As the war progressed, improvements in fighter escort tactics significantly increased bomber survivability. Long-range American fighters eventually gained the ability to accompany bombers all the way to their targets and back. Aircraft such as the legendary transformed the air war by challenging enemy fighters before they could attack bomber formations. The combination of heavy bombers and effective fighter escorts proved devastating to enemy defenses and played a major role in securing Allied air superiority. The B-17 also contributed to technological advancements in navigation, bombing accuracy, communications, and strategic planning. Military leaders learned valuable lessons about large-scale air operations that influenced future generations of aircraft and doctrine. The experience gained by B-17 crews helped shape modern air forces and demonstrated the importance of strategic air power in global conflicts. Beyond its military achievements, the Flying Fortress became a cultural icon. Wartime newspapers frequently featured stories about heroic crews and remarkable missions. Aircraft often carried colorful nose art, personal names, and unique designs painted by crew members. These decorations reflected the personalities, hopes, and humor of the men who flew them. Some aircraft achieved fame after surviving numerous combat missions, becoming symbols of perseverance and luck. The human stories connected to the B-17 remain some of the most compelling aspects of its legacy. Crews formed close bonds through shared experiences. Living, training, and fighting together created friendships that lasted a lifetime. Many veterans later recalled not only the dangers they faced but also the camaraderie that helped them endure difficult circumstances. Their stories reveal the personal sacrifices behind the larger historical events. When discussing the Flying Fortress, it is impossible to ignore the enormous industrial effort that supported its success. Thousands of workers manufactured engines, instruments, weapons, and countless other components. Factories operated around the clock. Women entered the workforce in unprecedented numbers, helping meet wartime production demands. The aircraft became a symbol not only of military power but also of American industrial capability and national unity. By the end of World War II, more than 12,000 B-17s had been produced. They flew hundreds of thousands of missions and dropped vast quantities of bombs on strategic targets across Europe. Their contribution to the Allied victory remains a subject of historical study and debate, but few question their importance. The aircraft helped weaken enemy infrastructure, disrupted industrial production, and supported broader military operations throughout the conflict. Following the war, advances in aviation technology gradually replaced piston-engine bombers with more modern designs. Many B-17s were retired, scrapped, or sold for civilian use. Some found new roles in aerial surveying, firefighting, cargo transport, and research. Although their military careers ended, the aircraft continued serving in various capacities for years afterward. Fortunately, several flying fortresses survived and were preserved by museums, collectors, and aviation enthusiasts. Today, these aircraft provide a tangible connection to history. Seeing a restored B-17 in person offers a powerful reminder of the era in which it served. The aircraft's size, complexity, and presence leave a lasting impression on visitors. When one of these historic bombers takes to the air during demonstrations, the sound of its engines transports audiences back to a time when the outcome of a global war depended on machines like this and the people who flew them. Modern historians continue examining the strategic